Imagine yourself on the battlefield. The silence weighs like a sentence until a sound tears through the air. Not thunder, not the roar of men, but the deadly whistle of something falling from the sky. Short, heavy darts rain down at an angle, piercing wood, leather, and flesh. The screams of soldiers and horses mix with the metallic thud of impact. These are not ordinary arrows. It is a weapon almost forgotten, once feared as a harbinger of death, the Plumbata. A small dart, weighted with lead, capable of turning formations into chaos before swords even crossed. Today, you will discover the history of this invention that changed the way Rome waged war. A projectile so ingenious and brutal it could by itself decide battles. And the question that will echo in your mind is simple. If it had been used earlier, could it have changed the destiny of the empire? If this introduction already made you feel the weight of war, imagine what is still to come. Only those who stay until the end uncover the darkest secrets of the empire. So leave your like now, because that shows you value this kind of content and helps me bring even more hidden stories of Rome. And subscribe to the channel so you won't miss a single detail of these revelations that most people will never know. Together, let's open the hidden pages of history. For centuries, the backbone of Rome was its heavy infantry. The typical legionary of the Republic and the early empire carried discipline as his greatest weapon. Protected by the scutum, a rectangular shield that covered nearly the whole body, and armed with the gladius, a short stabbing sword, he embodied the unshakable strength of the empire. Before closing into direct combat, each soldier hurled his pilum, a throwing spear that not only pierced shields but rendered them useless, as its iron shank bent and stuck fast. This was the first stage of attack: disorganize the enemy, then crush them in close quarters. But warfare changed. The second art. A century brought new challenges, frontiers too vast, enemies who did not play by the same rules. It was in this new landscape that the Plumbata emerged, discreet yet devastating. By the 2nd century, Rome was no longer a power facing only local tribes. The empire stretched across immense territories with exposed frontiers and enemies who exploited speed as a weapon. Germanic warriors and Sarmatian cavalry struck and withdrew in open terrain, making the old compact formations less effective. Long, drawn-out battles of direct clash became rare. Mobility was vital, and Rome had to reinvent itself. Discipline and heavy arms alone were no longer enough. War demanded reach, ranged impact, and tools capable of breaking the enemy's advantage before close contact. Out of this transformation came the Plumbata, a small, heavy, deadly dart capable of destabilizing entire formations and redefining combat. To survive in this new scenario, Rome had to alter even its military identity. The gladius, once iconic, gave way to the spatha, a longer sword of 70-80 centimeters, suited for both infantry and cavalry. The heavy rectangular shield was replaced with lighter circular models that allowed more agility in mounted combat. Helmets and armor were redesigned too, less rigid, more practical, balancing protection and mobility. The army, once a homogeneous wall of discipline, became a mixed, flexible force. It was within this changing environment that the Plumbata became a key piece. Unlike the upilum, thrown just before the clash, it struck from afar, opening battles with a storm of lethal darts that could decide the outcome before the first direct blow. The earliest mentions of the Plumbata appear around the 2nd century AD in military treatises like Vegetius Epitoma Rei Militaris, and later in the Strategicon, attributed to Emperor Maurice. These records show it was no improvised weapon, but carefully designed and integrated into the legions. The idea was simple and brilliant. Combine the lightness of an arrow with the punch of a javelin, adding one crucial detail: a lead weight fixed to the shaft. This multiplied the striking force and range, making it devastating against lightly armored foes and even horses in motion. In ambushes, sieges, and open-field battles, the Plumbata turned ordinary soldiers into makeshift archers, expanding the offensive power of the Roman infantry and reducing reliance on auxiliaries. What made the Plumbata truly lethal was its ingenious design. The most common variant, the Plumbata mamillata, measured 30 to 45 centimeters. At the tip, a 9-centimeter iron head sharp enough to pierce hardened leather, light wood, and flesh. At the shaft's center lay the secret, a molded lead weight, stabilizing flight and multiplying impact. At the rear, feathers acted as stabilizers, ensuring a high descending arc toward the target. The result was devastating. A compact dart, easy to carry, yet capable of piercing shields and even horses' flanks. Ancient sources mention the Plumbata in at least 20 instances, and it appears illustrated in military manuals from the 5th and 6th centuries, proof of its standardization and wide use. Each legionary carried about 5 Plumbatae, usually fixed inside his shield, always ready to be thrown in seconds. Some stored them in leather pouches strapped to their bodies, but the most striking image is of the soldier raising his shield and unleashing these deadly darts upon the enemy. The throwing technique was unique. Unlike the pilum, it was not cast in a straight line, but in a downward arc, producing a stable, high trajectory. The result, an attack from above, far harder to block. Shields protected well against frontal blows, but poorly against descending projectiles, which pierced leather, wood, even horses. This gave the ordinary soldier power similar to an archer, extending the legion's reach and spreading panic before contact. The Plumbata had one crucial advantage over the pilum: its range. While the pilum was effective at just over 20 meters, the Plumbata could reach up to 80 meters with a well-executed throw. That meant striking the enemy long before contact, breaking formations and morale. Imagine dozens, perhaps hundreds of darts raining down, wounding men and horses, piercing shields, spreading panic. The impact was both physical and psychological. Terrified soldiers lost cohesion. Cavalry, the enemy's backbone, was easily neutralized. Strategically, this weapon gave Roman infantry new versatility. The common legionary, once reliant almost entirely on melee, now acted as a hybrid force, capable of disorganizing the foe before drawing his sword. Among the most enigmatic variants was the Triboiata Plumbata, mentioned in few sources. Unlike the standard model, it had 3 extra metal spikes besides the main shaft. This made it a dual-purpose weapon, wounding upon impact and, when fallen, serving as a deadly obstacle. It worked like an airborne caltrop, akin to the spiked stars cast on the ground to hinder cavalry. Imagine a Roman fortification guarded not only by walls, but by a field of projectiles that, once fallen, created a hazard zone for men and horses alike. Ingenious, ideal for ambushes and defensive positions. Rare as it was, it proves Roman creativity in turning even a dart into a tool of psychological and physical deterrence. Some legions earned renown precisely for their mastery of the Plumbata. Among them were the Jovians and Herculeans, Illyrian troops famed for endurance and discipline, chosen for decisive battles under emperors like Diocletian and Maximian. Their prestige lay in the independence the weapon gave. Without relying on auxiliary archers, the legions themselves could weaken foes from afar and still keep the crushing power of heavy infantry in close combat. Small, discreet, easy to carry, the Plumbata was one of the most ingenious weapons of Rome's late arsenal. Yet in time it disappeared before newer technologies of war. And now the question remains: if it had been introduced in the Republican times, could it have changed the fate of legendary battles? If you believe so, leave your comment, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with those who, like you, are fascinated by the hidden secrets of Roman warfare.